And welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just, and that is Mr. Richard Fields. I'm not exactly what I said there, Richard Fields. So just in case anybody got confused, we are Libertarian Counterpoint. We've been that way for quite a while. When did we switch from Libertarian Conspiracy? Richard, do you know when that happened?
Oh, in the mid '90s, sometime. I was about. When it was. It was when I think Harry Brown was running for president. Somewhere back then.
So it's been a while. We've been Counterpoint for quite a while. I just can't say it. So apparently that's.
It was more fun when it was a conspiracy.
Yeah. Well. One of the things, we're not a conspiracy anymore. Richard.
You got that right. You have that absolutely correct, which segues into my reports from the fields. Richard Fields with this week's report from the fields. Here's a headline that I really never expected to hear in my lifetime from CNBC. Quote, Argentina's midterm election landslide win to Milei's libertarian overhaul. Libertarian landslide. In one sentence. Wow. Now, I can certainly quibble and say Milei should have refused the American taxpayer money Trump handed to him on the condition that he win, but I won't. Politics is by its nature a filthy enterprise. Most politicians are always surreptitiously trying to increase the amount of money they can effectively steal from the citizenry. And the overall trajectory of political history is that, like parasites, they gradually grift more and more from society. But eventually the host is spent. It has no more for the politicians and bureaucrats to steal. At that point, the system, whether it's an empire or just another country, implodes. And also at that point, things can get even worse. Think the bloody French Revolution against the corrupt monarchy of the time. Or with the right leadership, they can get orders of magnitude better. Think the American Revolution against the equally corrupt British monarchy, or the collapse of Peronism, an ugly parasitic mix of the worst features of socialism and fascism. They controlled politics in Argentina for almost a century. Political systems can slowly become incrementally worse. That's the usual model. Countries start out as republics with equal rights for all citizens. Politicians gradually turn them into empires, which eventually, incrementally, die. History is littered with examples: the Roman Empire, the Spanish Empire, the British Empire, sultanates in the Middle East and Asia, numerous Chinese dynasties. The list is endless. What happens after the collapse is a function of leadership. Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, and Madison were classical liberal, read libertarian, leaders who founded the American Republic in the wake of a declining British Empire. Javier Milei is the leader that was able to mobilize the people of Argentina to try something other than the failed welfare state that was Peronism. America's capitalist economy has been fraying for decades, but compared to governments in the rest of the world, it's still the cleanest dirty shirt. After he was elected, Milei tried to make friends with the Biden administration. Biden ignored him, so he did the next best thing and spoke at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. Trump was there, and being a consummate entertainer, recognized that quality in Milei and took a liking to him. Never mind that they have differing political philosophies. Well, that's not exactly accurate. Trump has no political philosophy. Milei is a doctrinaire libertarian, but he's pragmatic enough to make friends with powerful people and accept their help when it's offered. 2 years ago, Milei was elected on an explicitly libertarian platform of cutting government spending, all government spending. There was nothing mealy-mouthed in his campaign. He brandished a real working chainsaw at rallies, symbolizing that he would take a chainsaw to government spending. And that's exactly what he did. He brought the government budget into balance for the first time in decades. In doing so, he reduced inflation to a tiny fraction of what it was under Peronism. He brought rents down and made housing affordable and available by abolishing rent control. He reduced import and export taxes, freeing up trade and encouraging foreign investments. In short, he created the economic miracle that always results from libertarian free market policies. And the voters in Argentina signified that they like what they see so far and gave Milei the additional congressional seats he needs to make his vetoes of Peronist spending bills stick. He won a majority of the Senate seats up for grab, as well as a majority of the contested seats in the lower house. Overall, his party won 41% of the vote, outpolling the Peronist parties and all other parties. Remarkably, he did so in spite of allegations of corruption involving his sister and chief of staff. Our congratulations to Javier Milei, and we hope that North America will eventually follow the example of the South American country of Argentina. I'm Richard Fields, and that's this week's Report from the Fields. See you again next week.
Thank you, Richard. You know, it's the first really time it's been tried, right? We've gone from such political extremes that we've actually seen when tried, it can succeed. There's a long way to go, right? He's only been office 2 years. And so, but what I find interesting, a lot of his complaints are saying he hasn't fixed all these problems. We need to go back to the thing that created all these problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of, you don't understand. You gave these other people, what, 30, 40, 70 years? What was it? Of socialist?
It was back in the 1940s. So, yeah, a long time.
Yeah, 70 years of socialist attempts, and they failed. And in 2 years, he's fixed a lot of those problems. Now, there's a long
and to be fair, it was a mix of socialism and fascism. But hey, what's the difference? And
what's the difference among friends, right?
And the other interesting thing is this: commentators from the left will always say, "Well, socialism, given enough time and enough rope, always fails. There are no examples of a truly socialist economy that works well." People throw out the Nordic countries. The Swedes and the Danes and the Norwegians, but they're really more capitalist than they are socialist. But the fact is, socialist economies always fail. The excuse that's made is, well, that wasn't really socialism. But with capitalism, almost capitalism, and we have never ever had a totally capitalist country. I mean, the U.S. was pretty much capitalist, but not totally capitalist throughout the 19th century and really up until about 1913. But it's worked a heck of a lot. Almost capitalism works way better than almost socialism in every case.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of proven the point. We talked a couple of weeks ago that I was skeptical when we were back in the studio with, I think it was John. I'm skeptical this some of these trade deals he made, this $40 billion, $20 billion, kind of dependent upon how you run the numbers, and the meat deal. And then I heard a story from a guy, a cattle rancher. God, I can think of the name. A cattle rancher. And he says, we can only make enough beef in this country to feed 300 million people. So we need to import beef. And that hamburger you're eating at McDonald's or Burger King probably comes from Brazil right now anyway. So as a cattle rancher, he's not concerned about the beef part of the deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, free trade always works ultimately to the benefit of the majority of people. Now, there will be occasionally some industries that, like your cat, some industries that have a problem. Certain players in industry may have a bit of a problem because they're outcompeted by the same industry in another country, either because of lower wages, less regulation, that sort of thing. But ultimately, the more free trade we have, the better off we all are, and it's simply because of the concept which has been known really since classical liberal times. John, the father of classical economics, came up with it, which is the idea that those who are best at something should concentrate on that and buy from somebody that is better at something they're not so good at. it's pointless for people in North Dakota to try to grow bananas. It's possible you could do it with greenhouses and a lot of tender loving care, but you're not going to be able to compete with bananas that grow like weeds in Costa Rica.
No, you have to and if you're going to do that, you better specialize in some specific banana that has a higher market value than your regular off-the-shelf banana that you get at the grocery store, right? If you're going to try that, you better have the best dang banana in the planet if you're going to succeed at that. All right.
And let's face it, bananas are a commodity.
Well, we're talking about bananas and stuff going on bananas. Congress, we still, as of the recording of this this episode, we're Tuesday, the 28th, Tuesday night, the 28th. The government is still shut down. The world hasn't come to an end. So, there's a lot of government that doesn't need to be done, apparently. But, the Congress is under pressure. Troops might get paid or maybe not. The food stamps aren't going to get paid. Who knows what's going to happen with Social Security recipients? They haven't really said yet. So at least not that I've heard. So, at what point, who's going to break? I was watching CNN earlier, and Republicans haven't been hurt. Their poll numbers are up a couple. Democrats haven't been hurt. They're kind of steady. So who's going to crack?
Well, the point is that most of what government doesn't really help anybody. I mean, I've been around long enough. I'm old. I've been around long enough to see dozens, if not dozens of government, so-called partial government shutdowns. And they've never, ever caused any significant problems. Even when California shuts down, it doesn't cause much of a problem. And it's more of a real shutdown than when the feds do it. But the point is, I did a show back in the 90s or early 2000s, I forget exactly when, where I read a fake news story talking about how Armageddon was approaching and everything was shutting down. Planes were falling out of the skies. Ships were running into each other in the Mississippi River, and all manner of bad things were happening. And of course, it was all fake, but basically illustrating the point that most of what government does is counterproductive at worst and just not worth anything at best, and simply moving money from one set of hands to another set of hands most of the time. And that's what, if you take a look at the federal budget, 2/3 of it is simply transfer payments in healthcare and Social Security and in the military to a certain extent. That's just moving money from one set of people to another set of people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pencil pushers and paper pushers around when we don't use paper anymore. I think, it's the strangeness of that, as our efficiency should have grown, government efficiency didn't. Everybody else got efficient. You do more with less, and the government needs more and more and more to do less and less and less. Somehow that's how that is working. And,
well, and Milei
I feel for the people who have grown dependent, who have been, for whatever reason, Richard, who have gotten dependent upon the government. And now that dependency is having the light of day shown on it, right?
Yeah.
I feel for them because in some sense, it's not their fault. It is. You're ultimately responsible for yourself. But we, as citizens of the United States, we helped create this mess. And so at the same time, I don't know, Richard. I've got mixed feelings. I've got some emotional feelings on this, and then you got the logical feelings on this, right?
The emotional feelings is people have been trained through our school system, our education system, our media have been trained to say the government is here to help you. The government is here to bail you out. The government is you're not responsible. The government is. That's wrong, and it always has been wrong, and it always will be wrong. But if you've been trained that way, then when it doesn't happen, when the government is not there to bail you out or to feed you or to put a roof over your head or whatever, then you have, hey, this is not what everybody told me. And I can understand people being chagrined because they've been lied to for decades or their entire life. But that's the point. They've been lied to. Whenever somebody says, the government is here, you're not responsible for your own well-being. You're being lied to.
Yeah, well, being lied to, that brings us up to our next topic here. We got a new poll has Andrew Cuomo and, Zohran Mamdani, Mamdani.
Yeah.
The New York City, polls are showing that it's closing. I mean, it's still highly likely that Mandan, how do you pronounce that, Richard?
Mamdani, I think.
Mamdani?
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher that
The
poor
guy
man's
that
name.
can't
I
do push-ups.
apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is not on purpose. I just can't pronounce that name.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, we're looking at two really, really bad candidates. One is an outright socialist with leaning, with sympathies for the worst part of Islam, and the other is somebody who has been responsible for some of the biggest grifts in New York history, and neither one of them is worth voting for. And the Republicans not much better, from what I understand. Perhaps a little better, but not much. And he doesn't stand a chance. So this is a case where if I was in New York, I probably would not vote. Simply
yeah,
would
I mean,
not vote.
who you really going to vote for? You're going to vote for a clear communist at best, right? He's a communist. That's the best. And then you've got Cuomo, who's clearly corrupt, and got run out of the governor's office because he was allegedly, we'll leave it allegedly, a womanizer. And then you've got the Republican candidate is a piece of work himself, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he the guy who was the Hell's Angels creator? He's the guy who created the Hell's Angel, right?
I guess I don't know that much about him, but
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, he's a cipher as far as the race is concerned. In any case.
Yeah, it doesn't. All it's going to matter is make some people not have to choose between Cuomo and Mamdani. That's really all it is. It's just kind of crazy that it seems like there's a handful of places where you don't get real choice. I mean, the system isn't designed to give us real choice anyway, but there's just a handful of places where it's completely obvious. Yeah. And speaking of completely obvious, and I bring this next one up is because what happens in UK often sometimes follows down here in California. We all say California leads the way, but I think the Labor Party in the UK has a connection here to the California labor movement, because the Labor is trying to let unions kind of go into workplaces that don't have unions, Richard, once a week to try to convince the employees to join the union.
Oh, this is for non-union shops. They're saying you have to let agitators come in and
yes.
Oh, boy.
Statutory right of access to businesses, to every business, whether you've got a union or not. I think there's an employee number, limit on it, but it's like 29 or something silly. It's not like it's big business. It's you own a couple fast food joints and you're way over the limit, right? Yeah. And so essentially any medium to small medium-sized business, right? If you've got 30 employees or so, union agitators can come in, rile up your employees to join a union,
waste their time.
Yeah, waste their time, waste your time. It's kind of like the mob, right? We've gone back to the mob, where the mobs come in. Hey, it's a nice workplace you've got here. It'd be a shame if someone were to come in here and disrupt it all the time. Why don't you just pay us some money so we can not bother you every week?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with organized labor in principle. The idea that people should be able to form a union, organize, and do collective bargaining if the employer is willing to do collective bargaining. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just a different way of negotiating, and it's a way for employees to have some solidarity and have some present a united front to management or to the ownership. But when the government comes in and tries to put their finger on the scale, that's what's happening in Britain, and that's what's been happening in the United States for decades as well. All of the labor laws are really just attempts to make it easier for unions to organize, make it easier for unions to win elections, make it easier for unions to prevail in wage negotiations and work condition negotiations and so on. And the reason that all of that finger on the scale stuff has been done is because on their own unions aren't all that effective.
Well, and here's the problem I have with modern unions. My grandfather's union actually offered a service to the employer as well, right? The often asked as an offer. They often acted as a my cat is driving me crazy here. They often acted as the HR firm, right? They did training. If an employee wasn't working out, they would go in and they do the counseling, and if they really working out, they'd replace them. Just get this guy out of here. They bring someone else in. They took care of coverages. Someone was going on vacation. They made sure they had union coverage. If you needed some new workers for a short-term project, they went out and found them for you. These are the services union used to provide, and they no longer provide that. And
I was a member of the painters union in my youth when I was in my 20s, and they provided training. They provided workforce training. You had to act and screening to make sure that you knew the craft. If you didn't know the craft, you couldn't get into the union. And when an employer hired a union painter, he knew he was getting somebody who knew how to swing a brush or do the roller or use a spray gun. He knew that he was getting somebody who met a certain minimum standard of excellence. And then that's a service that was provided by unions. But when you're talking about, in particular, public employee unions, you're talking about electing people to form unions to negotiate with the people that form the union. It's totally messed up.
Yeah, even FDR knew that wasn't going to be a good idea. Yeah. So that was all right. So, all right, there was an article that caught my attention in the Examiner, Washington Examiner, a few days ago, and so I left it on the thing. He was talking about the difference between how Democrats and Republicans handle extremism in their parties. Now, his perception on how the parties deal with it, notwithstanding, it is, at least publicly, when they choose to defend somebody and when they choose to throw somebody under the bus, I think is different. Democrats throw people under the bus when it's popular opinion. Republicans will throw people under the bus when it hurts their long-term electoral chances. I think there's a difference there. It's the same thing we talked about, how Cuomo got thrown out because of the Me Too thing, and now he's back. Yeah. They don't really care.
Yeah.
Right? It was an immediate pain.
I think what's happening is we are becoming more and more tribal in politics. You've got the blue tribe and the red tribe, and the unifying factor is not what the tribe stands for or what the political party stands for, because most of them don't really stand for much of anything when you get right down to it. The unifying factor is, who do you hate? And the Democrats love to hate Republicans, particularly Trump. The Democrats or the Republicans love to hate progressives, people like Mamdani. So the unifying factor is not, hey, what are we going to do that's beneficial? How are we going to, say, cut regulations or lessen taxes or do things that will actually benefit the people? The unifying factor is, hey, you need to vote for us, because if you don't vote for us, that SOB over there is going to get elected. That's the unifying factor. And the more tribal we get, the more accepting we become, or the parties become, of their rascals, of their ne'er-do-wells, of the people who really don't meet any test whatsoever of public morality.
Yeah, I noticed that exact thing back in 2020 when I was running for state assembly. It's that I think it was always there, but it was just so obvious at that year, is that half your voters are not voting for you. They're voting against the other guy, at least half. Yeah. So when you go into support, you got 50.2% of the vote, and you're going in and saying, I have a mandate for my agenda. No, you don't. The reality is you don't have a mandate for your agenda. Your mandate is to not be the other guy. That's your mandate. That's all you've got. Yeah. And so I think it's a sad state of affairs, I think, ultimately, Richard. I think that's when that is. But there is some, I do think there's some positivity on the front. $1 billion disaster data returns. This is a sentence that I can't apparently speak tonight, Richard. $1 but it's not being run by the government. See, back before Doge and all those big cuts by the government would used to release, would calculate how much damage was done by, environmental disasters and wildfires and all that kind of stuff. And well, the government doesn't do that anymore. But some people thought it was so important that this data was captured and released that they did it themselves. Imagine that. If something is important enough, people will gather together and find a way to do that data, to do that job. You don't need the government to do everything.
UL, Underwriters Laboratories, is a good example of that. The excuse used for 99% of regulation is we need to do this to protect the public from defective products or dangerous things that are going to be sold by vendors who want to kill their customers or something. I'm not sure. But the fact is, when there is something that there is a need for making products safe, a real need, a private organization will almost always come in and provide that need. Consumers Reports is another one. But Underwriters Laboratories, they certify that electrical appliances and so on are in fact not going to electrocute you. That's a private sector organization, no government funding at all that I'm aware of, and they make sure that anybody that carries under the UL seal of approval is something that is effectively safe, or at least not going to kill you.
Yeah, underwriter, it exactly is who they say they are. The insurance companies got together and said, we're taking a big risk by not testing these devices. So they created a consortium to test devices, and you can't get insurance without the devices. Now there's another company. Now there's like 3 companies that do this. Yeah. So there's actually more now. Companies actually came in, which
is competition, which is not a function of markets.
Yeah. That's the thing, Richard. You don't need the government to do everything. If it's important enough, if people want it done, they will find a way to do it. I think this is something we preach every single week. Congratulations to Milei and his success of the elections. Those bums down in Washington, D.C. need to do something, but we're $38 trillion in debt now. So, maybe they should stay out of their jobs for a little longer. We're out of time.
If Congress stays away forever, it will not break my heart. And I won't get my Social Security. I won't get my Medicare. I don't. It's a price I'm willing to pay for less government regulation and less government meddling in my life.
All right, we're out of here, Richard. Have a good night. Please remember to love everybody.
Thank you.